Hello and welcome to Ideas with Impact podcast. I am super excited to have a wonderful guest today. His name is Shawn Leonard, who is a heart center Indigenous spiritual talker or spirit talker and a psychic medium from Millbrook First Nation, Nova Scotia, Canada. Hello. With over 25 years of experience, Shawn has dedicated his life to bridging the gap between physical and spiritual world, helping individuals connect with departed loved ones and find healing through their messages. Hello, Shawn.
Well, hello, Aleksandra. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. I'm super happy to have you on and to find out a little bit more about the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whatever you like to talk about, I'm pretty much game to talk about anything spirit related in any way. And I don't really think about what I'm going to talk about for. I just whatever comes through is meant to come through that people are meant to hear, I guess.
So if you can just share maybe of how did you discover that you have these gifts?
Well, I think each and every person within the world is on a journey of self discovery, let's say. And I never, as a young child, said, "Hey, I have some type of special connection." I never thought that ever, and I still don't even feel like, even today, I don't like to like ego ties it in any way. Like I don't think I'm special. I feel like this is something that is natural, that is within every single person, and that is available to all of us. It's not just available to a select few. And I know a lot of people have misconceptions too about only certain people can do this, or maybe an indigenous shaman can only do this, etc. But that's the farthest thing from the truth. It's like who we are. We are spirit first, having a human experience. So it's just reconnecting with who we are, remembering who you are, and honoring that connection. And when you honor that and connect to it, through life for myself, there's been different, let's say, epiphanies
Mhm.
or awakenings or moments that are of synchronicity that after you have enough of them, you start to really realize that, hey, there's a lot more going on here now than you know than I thought before. Everything seemed disconnected or chaotic in some sense, but all of a sudden it became synchronized, or there's a plan, just the right person at the right time. And then when I started to work on my spirit growing up, etc., and just having words, even just saying different things with that I thought was just literally talking to the air. Things started to happen. And for me, there's been so many moments. And that's why I wrote my book called Spirit Talker, which I have right here,
Mhm.
which is a Heo's published book. And the reason why I wrote it is not to get wealthy. I'll tell you that, because writing a book doesn't get you wealthy.
Mhm.
What it does is get your story out there, and that's really what sharing your message is about. Whether you're an author or any other format that you're pursuing out there to give information to people. But in the book itself, I detail, my all many steps that brought me to the point where I am today. And there's still even more steps that are kind of taking place. And I don't want to say it's like that I graduated from this
Mhm.
lesson and vice versa. It was more of like an awakening with each life lesson that I've been through that helped reveal some aspect of who we are, or the greatest sense of who we are, not just within this world, but the universe itself. And I remember at a very, very young age, some very early spirit connections. And maybe many people can remember things when they're young. My mom says I should not remember these things, but I do. I absolutely do remember these things. And there's two things that I would say predominantly that I remember young that was very kind of unique and special. And this all happened between, let's say, the age 3.5 to probably like 6 years old, maybe 4 to 6, let's say then. Because around one of the stories relates to when I was very ill as a young child. I had pneumonia. And that's a story that I actually didn't put in the book. That maybe I'll shove it in another book down the road somewhere. But this is like a new story that I'm going to share. And it's, when I was young, I had pneumonia. I was in the hospital in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and my mom had to leave me there for some time because I was very, very ill. And they had to put me in an oxygen tent. And I remember being in the oxygen tent vaguely, very vaguely, because again, you're talking like 4 to 5. I have very vague memories of being there. And I remember when my mom would come, most of the time I think I was sleeping because I would wake up from time to time. But occasionally I'd wake up and I would like kind of like play or I would chit chat. I don't know what type of chit chat you can have at 4 or 5, but probably just mostly playing with the other little boy in the tent beside me, who was in the oxygen tent in the same room. And I remember like this lady coming for him that I believe was his mother, and she was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. She had a long white gown, and she came in and she told me that she was taking him home, and she said, "I'm going to leave you something, Sean. I'm going to leave you this coloring book." Now, this coloring book is like it wasn't like a normal coloring. It was a paint by numbers coloring book. That's what I remember. That you take some water and you would dip into the page and you would color the diagram or the picture. And she said, "I'll leave this for you as a thank you for spending time with my son," right? And so she left, and my mom eventually comes to get me, and I'm well. And I remember sitting with my mom on her knee, or vice versa, and we were getting ready to go, and I would not leave because I said I have to have that coloring book because that's my coloring book. That lady that came for that little boy, left me that coloring book, and she says, "Well, I don't know who put this coloring book in here, but it can't be yours." And there's no way a lady has given it to you because there's been no one else in this room but you. There's been no other little boy, there's been no other person in this room, so you must be lying, or somehow this got misplaced and you're just mistaken. And I'm like, no, no, mom,
Yeah.
there was a little boy in the tent and this woman had come for him. Now I've come to understand that this little boy was probably deceased, or he was making his journey home, and he might have been still hanging around the hospital for whatever. But a lady, very, very beautiful and filled with light, had come to take him home. That could have been an angel. I don't know.
Mhm.
It could have been like a mother from another lifetime. I really literally do not know, but I just know that I did play and speak to a little boy, and this beautiful lady that was imbued with light had come to bring him home. And home to me meant like his house, not like home to the spirit world.
Mhm.
So that's what I've come to believe. That's like one of my earliest memories that I have of something being kind of oddly different,
Mhm.
or kind of strange in a sense, I guess. And after that, it was I had other times, and it was mostly my great grandparents that would visit me. It would be like when I was very young, and these two shadowy people who I knew as my great grandparents, who loved me dearly, would show up at 3 o'clock in the morning and be standing in my room whispering to each other.
Mhm.
And so I became accustomed to it, but I still was kind of nervous about it. So I'd ask my mom to put some night lights in my room, because it seemed like when the night lights were there, I couldn't really see the shadows as much, and
Mhm.
then I could ignore them and sleep very, very normally as a young boy. But a couple of times I remember waking up, and one particular, I woke up and my mom had, for whatever reason, my mom thought it was an amazing idea to come in and turn my night lights off. And I woke up. Apparently, you need to save like a quarter of a
Yeah.
penny on a nightlight. Electricity cost back in 1980, But for me, I woke up, and again, my grandparents were there, and I literally kind of pulled the sheets over my head, and just pretended that because I knew eventually they would leave. So they were leaving, and but somebody, as they left, and I'm assuming it was my great grandma, ran her fingers through my hair, and it startled me. It really, really startled me. And I jumped up off my bed, out of my room, opened my door into my mom's room, and I was like crying. And I told my mom not to turn my lights off. And she kind of walked me in there and said, "Listen, you just got to tell them that you're not comfortable with them here, and that disturbing your sleep, and that you love them, but just not to visit you this way anymore." So I did that,
Mhm.
and it was very effective. I actually never saw my great grandparents again in that same format.
Mhm.
Now, as a young boy, and I'm sure many young children in the world, if not maybe even possibly all of them, have people that are watching over them. Could be your great grandparents. It could be some other spirits you encounter that you maybe not realize that they're actually spirits because you don't know the difference.
Is it because
And
we are so innocent, and because we are so not bombarded by all this information, like our parents, for example, telling us, "Oh, you just envisioning things, you're just dreaming or whatever." Is it because of that,
Yeah.
or is it something else?
Well, I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. I just feel like that at some point we become more earthbound.
Mm,
We become more connected to the earth and the physicality of Mother Earth.
mm-hmm,
And, other experiences I had as a young boy, I used to like fly everywhere in my dreams. I could
mm,
literally get up and fly around my neighborhood. And I know so many people have an experience and memory of this when they were young, going out and playing with maybe some other children and flying around the neighborhood. And, you know, I think probably even like, the story of Peter Pan almost comes to mind with this. Like,
mm-hmm,
it's probably inspired by children who astral travel
mm,
and have friends in the astral world that they get to play with, which are just other children that are also astral traveling sometimes. Now, mind you, I lived out in the country. There wasn't a whole lot of kids running around, but I remember living on a hill, and as I got older, I found it more difficult to fly in my dreams.
mm,
And I remember this moment clearly where I was at the top of my hill, just outside on the road, and I ran. In my dream, I'm running and I'm flapping my arms, thinking that this is going to help me fly. And it did. I could literally get maybe 3 or 4 feet off the ground and I kind of float right back down. It's because as we grow, because like when we're young, we all of us are spirit first.
mm-hmm,
We've chosen to incarnate in this form. We'll return to spirit. It's the cycle of everything. It's
mm-hmm,
this everything is circular. You think about it, we spin around the sun. The sun
mm-hmm,
spins itself, the earth spins, the moon spins. Everything is cycle. We have seasons,
mm-hmm,
there's spring, fall, winter, summer, etc. And there's a cycle. And just like our life, there's a cycle. And when we've just entered into the world from, let's say, a new cycle of coming into being, to experience, to grow, to further understand the human condition, because again, this is not who we truly are. This is just a temporary form. And I wish I could say, I'm like literally, I think my body changes every moment of the
mm-hmm,
day. There's cells in your body that just don't exist anymore. Are you the same person you were yesterday? No.
mm-hmm,
There's actually a lot of cells. There might be some cells in your body that are the same, but cells actually transform,
mm-hmm,
and you start to age. And I mean, we went from this being like this small in our mother's womb to
mm-hmm.
this size that we are today, and then we'll probably shrink again a little bit, get a lot grayer and older and
Yeah.
wrinkly, and then but yet the essence of who we are exists.
Mm-hmm,
And then we will, transcend this form again. And the cycle will be into the light from which we all have come from, because we're all light beings. And in Indigenous culture, I like to say that we're star beings.
mm,
Because, if you think about it, and I do have a course, an online course on Hay House, audio app there. I forget what it's called, Empower Me, and there's also one on their other one, Heal Your Life Plus. But
mm-hmm,
there's a course, and I think you can even buy it on Amazon. But I call it the Four Sacred Fires,
mm,
and it's an Indigenous teaching about that we're the first sacred fire, which is grandfather's son. The light that has come before us. I mean, that is formed scientifically the world, the earth, and all the molecules, and spun it with gravity, and came into this great molecular, let's say, sacred fire that created the earth and all the other planets, with all of the elements that have come together from other planets and stars that have gone supernova,
mm,
and then ultimately have created us. And I think from a multitude of ways, not just from the elements that exist within Mother Earth,
mm-hmm,
but possibly seeded from other lives of other planets that have existed before.
mm,
Um, and I think that science even knows that now, that they can look at. They just got element, or they went and tested an asteroid or a meteorite that was going by, fairly large one. They landed something on it, took a sample, and brought it back. And when they looked at it, it had all the building blocks of all of life within it.
mm.
So
That-
that there's a
So
seeding.
amazing. So
It
amazing.
is. There's a
Mm-hmm,
seeding that's taking place in within not only this world. That means that other worlds would have had to have life,
mm-hmm,
because you can't have all of the seedlings of life within an asteroid or meteorite or what have you, and not have exist before
mm-hmm.
and somewhere else. It's there. And when our world is done, maybe there's a cycle even to our world
Yeah.
that will, our molecules and our atoms and all of life that existed will be in some asteroid floating through Earth and seed another planet at some point.
Yeah. Or we
I'm
haven't
sure
found
that
it
there's
yet.
Oh, I think we probably have found a lot of them.
Yeah.
I just don't think that call me a conspiracy theorist, but I don't feel like the government, I almost feel like, when they do make scientific breakthroughs, it's secret
Mm. Yeah.
and they don't want us to know right away. And I feel probably in the next, let's say 4 to 5 years, maybe a little bit more.
Hmm.
I'm hoping sooner, but maybe we're going to get to learn potentially that they're going to make big announcements that, hey, there's life other worlds. They've already gotten James Webb Space Telescope pointing at other
Yeah.
solar systems,
Yeah.
and they're coming back with the molecular biology that would have life.
Yeah.
Right. So where's that coming from? You could say, well, it's all microalgae, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it's like beings much more advanced and than even we are. So I feel like there's a larger element of evolution within the universe that we're part of. We
Hmm.
are the universe. But as an individual part moving within the universe,
Hmm.
we have consciousness, we have awareness, we have that sacred light, our spirit that exists within here. And it's an indigenous teaching
Hmm.
and belief that is shared. And we even talk about how, in the Milky Way, there's what we call the spirit road.
Hmm.
And that when we leave this world, potentially, we or our soul family, our soul tribe could potentially go out into any of the other stars where there's habitable worlds to live a new life if we choose. Or we can choose to live here again in time. There's a cycle, with everything that you can see, whether it's fall, winter, and I wish that summer would be here a little bit sooner, to be honest, but
Mm.
it's cold here right now in Canada. And
I
there's a
know.
cycle. But, we have to live presently. Obviously, we're here
Yeah.
now. We have a purpose here. There's a code in our DNA. I mean, if you even break down our DNA, there's a code within it
Hmm.
that dictates, Alexandra, you're going to be a dirty blonde. You're going
Hmm.
to have kind of hazelish brownish eyes a little bit.
Hmm.
All that's written in your code that of what you're going to look like based on the genetics of your parents,
Hmm.
but also there's code in there that's going to have like health predispositions. It's going to have things in there that you're going to struggle with that maybe you're not going to be able to do Olympics like someone else does,
Hmm.
that, even though you maybe had a dream once to be very athletic in a certain way, you just can't compete on a level that maybe some other people do at this time.
Mm.
And that's okay, but that's who you're meant to be.
Yeah, I think I love what you
Right?
just said is that we all have a purpose. I think it's just we really need to find that purpose. Um,
Yeah.
and I believe that right now there is that huge shift when people, I mean, maybe not for everybody, but I find it maybe in the circles that I'm hanging around or I'm um, getting to know people here and there, they are all looking for some stuff. They're all looking for maybe not who they are, because I think a lot of people know who they are, but they're looking for where they kind of fit in a way,
Yeah.
and how they
Well,
can
kind
go
of fit in, and
forward.
like how are you going to express yourself within the world?
Hmm.
And, and then when you, because I mean, there's a lot of people that are kind of still searching for that because they don't feel like they found who they are in a sense yet.
Hmm.
They maybe know who they are, but what what can I give and how can I express myself in the world that brings me joy?
Mm.
And that's, I think, our true purpose is to kind of come here to express ourselves in the greatest and the most abundant ways that we potentially can, because that's what the universe does.
Hmm.
We're no different than the universe, is we're come here to express ourselves in the most amazing and great ways and to be the greatest that we can be in whatever endeavor that we choose to do it within,
Mm.
in a good way, with
And it also
love,
really
kindness,
has to come
compassion.
down from your heart. Like it has to come down from your heart,
Yeah, absolutely.
right?
Like
Because
with
I think
love,
we
kindness,
lived in such a
compassion.
long cookie cutters in a way. This is what you go to work, you raise your
Oh,
family. And I think things are so shifting, like I said earlier. And yeah, there is a huge shift. What are your thoughts about that?
well, you know what? Maybe that cookie cutter approach has existed for so long. It's been, we'll call it a mental mind virus of
Mhm.
sorts, because we have been conditioned. My mom, and this is where the cycle within our DNA can be broken, right?
Mhm.
Because, in our ancestors, they had lived a certain way that they had, most of let's say my last 3 or 4 generations for sure, have had to work jobs where they worked really, really hard. and they had to buy a house. They had to have a pension. They had a family. They had children. So it was almost like a cookie cutter thought of what life should look like.
Mm.
And and the job could be different. You may hate your job, but you do it anyway because you have to. It's not about being happy. It's about having enough to provide for your family. And there's an act of service that is immensely powerful with that as well. But why can't you do both? Why can't you do something that you love and still provide for your family? Why can't you express yourself in the most amazing way that you would like to, and then provide an income, or provide a home, and provide for your children, and even provide for other things? I believe that that's all possible if you believe it so.
It is.
Because
It's just it's also, switching or reprogramming your mind from I'm not good enough, I can't do this. And I
yeah,
think again, once we switch those negative thoughts, emotions, things will come to you in a completely different way.
yeah, self-defeating
Hmm.
voices. We'll call that part of the mind virus that's been
Hmm.
installed in your hardware,
Hmm.
because you're the hardware, right? And it might be the thoughts of your mom or your grandparents that, well, you can't do this. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, I love my mother, absolutely love my mom, but she's tried to install some major software in my hardware big time while growing up for the years. And it was the silliest things, right?
Yeah.
You can't leave your job because if you leave your job, you need the pension. You need to be,
Hmm.
there's other ways to save without working at a job you don't like so you can have a pension.
Hmm.
But that's what my mom believed, right?
Hmm.
That's her belief. So that type of mind thinking was something that she was trying to, like, say, install within my thinking.
Hmm.
And we always kind of just had different views. So I was always a little bit rebellious, let's say, than the way she would approach life.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean I didn't try all those things, like working a 9 to 5 job. I've done various jobs, from making office furniture to do bills of material on AutoCAD for high-end office furniture in Calgary, Alberta,
Hmm.
to becoming a mailman, for God's sakes.
Hmm.
And but you know what happened? There's some things that happen in life that you can look at as like a very negative, right? And sometimes, based on your belief systems and how you approach life, is something negative happening to you could be life altering and throw you off track and throw you off course, right? And sometimes we have to be something drastic has to happen to us more than once for us to get it.
Hmm.
It's like, even for myself, one of the things that, because I was clinging to that thinking for so
Hmm.
long, until about maybe 13 years ago, that and I was like working myself to death, literally, like working, like, at the post office, doing readings on nights and weekends, doing little tours, and I was just like trying to do it all. I was literally not very well balanced in life. But I blew out my knee.
Hmm.
I had to have knee surgery. Here I'm a mail carrier, and I thought, this is a job that I can enjoy because I'm connecting to people. I'm out getting exercise. I absolutely love being a mail carrier, to tell you the truth. And I could still balance out doing readings and things like that. And then I blew out my knee again. And I'm like, I can't. And the doctor said, listen, Sean, you can't do this anymore. You can't deliver mail anymore. You're going to have to go inside and work sorting mail. Jokingly, I always said, licking envelopes or something like that. But
Those are the old days.
yeah, exactly. I'm going to be in working midnights
Yeah.
because I didn't have very much seniority, and I'll be working midnights, sorting mail and parcels for the carriers and such at night. And that's a good job for people who really, really enjoy it. But it wasn't for me. That's not what I wanted to do. And then I tried to keep working, and then I herniated a disc.
Oh.
I fell and herniated a disc, and that laid me up so bad. And then I'm like, I just can't do this physically anymore.
Yeah.
So I had to rethink my life. I mean, I'm already working as a spirit talker, a psychic medium, and I really enjoy this work.
Mhm.
Maybe I should embrace it more. Maybe I should open up to the possibility that this could be, a greater part of my life, and my job, my work, my income, etc. How can I make this work? And that's where you have to start asking yourself questions like, what can I do? Like, how can I make this work? How can I make this happen? So as soon as you start asking questions, you start coming up with answers, right?
Mhm.
So I had all of these also limiting beliefs about standing up in front of people,
Mhm.
and speaking, and fear, limiting beliefs about getting up in front of people and talking. And I had to really kind of surrender those,
Mm.
because if I was going to shift my life to be this person that I am today, I have to embrace the fear that I have in relation to being in front of a large group of people and doing the work that I do.
Mm.
So I did, and I attempted. I started to take little baby steps. Let's say, I went to a spiritualist church and started kind of like doing some readings in like maybe a group of 30 or 40 people, and then later I gained confidence, and when I even remember back in the day, like all these life lessons. I actually was part of another group called Sylvia Brown.
Oh
She had a
yes,
group
Sylvia
called Living
Brown. Yes,
Spiriters.
I think everybody
Yeah, yeah,
knows
back
about
in the
Sylvia
day.
Brown. Yeah.
And I thought about being a minister in her church because it was kind of new age thinking stuff. And anyway, I did it for like maybe 3 months, and I'm like, this is not for me either. And this is where we're searching, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
searching, what? But all these are teaching me something, even if it's not where I was meant to be. I got something from it, because I remember the first time I spoke at a Nova Spiritus and even a spiritualist church, that I was so terrified I literally couldn't get words out of my mouth. I struggled. It was painful for
Mm-hmm.
people to watch me speak. And I had a big write up that I had, and the guy that was overseeing me doing this pretty much said I had to read word for word. And this is where I realized this wasn't for me. I mean, because then he could edit my talks, and like, this is not good for me. I want to talk from my heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I turned the paper over. I knew all the material anyway, and I just spoke from my heart, and spoke from what I know, and it flowed.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody after I did it got up and cheered for me, clapped, and then next time I came back, there was like 60 people coming to see me just to have a half-hour talk, for God's sakes. And I'm like, okay, I'm on to something here. This is something, you know, I could write points that I could talk about, but how I need to communicate to people, uh, obviously how I've been approaching it has been wrong. And now I started this new approach, and then next, I decided to do a live in front of people, where I was doing readings, and I think I had 160 people or something like this. And it was just, and that's a lot of people for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like 160 people coming to see me, for God's sakes, to do an event. I think I sold tickets for like $40 or $50, and I was like, okay, so I did it. And then next time I did an event, 250 people came. So I knew what I was doing was effective, like in the way that people liked what I did, in the way that I approached it. And then I started to go on a tour across Canada. I said, okay, well, even if I get 30 people in Vancouver,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start getting out there. And I did. I went out to Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton. I started going to different cities and doing these little events that I would set up and do my little talk and do sessions at. And I actually have a tour coming up, and we just spoke about it prior.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking to me about not coming to Ottawa, but I might be coming to Ottawa in the fall. But there was so many limiting beliefs that I had that stopped me. One of them was a lot of the stuff that my mom had said, that you got to keep the job, and I hung on to that for probably longer than I had, even though I wanted to do this other work all along, and I was just not full time. But then the creator said, "Listen, Sean, we have a plan for you. You don't know the plan. I'm going to have to screw up your knee a little bit, but you're going to be okay. And after you, and if you don't get it, we're going to screw up your knee again. If you don't get it, then we're going to hurt your back. And you know what? You're going to get it. You're going to be out there helping people in the way that this is where you need to be."
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of what kind of took place. Everything kind of, even the bad things that I thought were going wrong in my life were actually going right. And it was like little nudges. Your guides, you call them your ancestors, you can call it the creator. I mean, I don't think there's a bad or right or wrong word for it all. Yeah, they're all right, in my opinion, if you choose it. And that's how I see my life. And that's why I wrote Spirit Talker, is the little things that led me through life to bring me where I am today, and what I learned through every one of those journeys. And I think if everyone out there thinks about their life and where they are today, and all the experience they've gone through, like the divorce,
Mm-hmm.
the separation, the job loss, and we could be angry, and we can be bitter. I mean, that's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And we can say, oh, okay, Thank you, Creator. Thank you for setting me in a different space and place.
Mm.
I'm grateful. I'm going to embrace this, and I'm going to do the greatest that I can.
Yeah, I like that because I can so relate to that in so many ways. It's
Yeah.
like, with my podcast and everything, and I, in the beginning when I would send out a message to someone saying, "Hey, I would really love for you to be on my podcast," and they got denied and got denied and I got denied, and it hurt. I was just like, oh, I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I'm like, you know what? Put the ego aside. It's okay. Maybe it's not the right time right now. Just do who you can talk to, just explore, and enjoy. Just simply enjoy the conversation. If it comes, it comes. If it does, it's okay. Like I had a conversation yesterday with someone, and because she asked me a question, and I said the same thing, and I was like, you know what? I'm doing this for me because I was like you. I had these beliefs, old belief systems that I kept on telling myself, oh, this is not for you. It's like public speaking. I'm like, I can't do that in front of people. My background, I'm Polish, even though I've been in Canada for 35 years. I'm like, I have this kind of like a wall where I feel like I'm a mute. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. And it's just like you said, it has to come from your heart. You have to speak with, your passion. And
Mhm.
either the message goes through or not, it doesn't matter because I'm speaking it from here. And
Right.
that's what matters, you know?
That is what matters. I mean, and I think but that's a lesson,
It is.
it takes time for people to get there. And it's okay, and it's okay to fail, and
Mm,
it's okay but just keep going. Even if you fail, if you don't get the right guest, or you don't get that, somebody respond or denies, I mean, just keep going, keep
yeah.
plugging away. And you don't do it for, you do it for other people. I do the
Yes.
work that I do for other people, but I also do it because it brings me joy doing
Mm,
it.
mm,
Nobody pays me to do podcasts. I
mm,
don't get paid for podcasts. I do them. I mean, if I like, I think I have 5 this week, and it's because people ask, and I will do them, and because I feel the Creator's given me this experience. And like I said about the book, when I wrote the book, this is not a get rich scheme in any sense. It's about, I wanted to share my stories to change and shift the world in a way that people can relate
mm,
and be inspired. You know,
mhm,
and that's why I'm doing podcasts too, is because I want to get out there and share my knowledge, share my wisdom, and help people.
mhm,
Because if I know the world has to evolve, and if I have a part in that, I do. We all do.
mhm,
We have a part in leaving the world in a better place than when we showed up.
mm.
And you can accept that, or you can choose not to. And it could be just, as small as just sitting with some friends and helping them.
Yeah.
And, when somebody asks you for help, you're available to help them in some way.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be monetary. It could be just words, wisdom, guidance, just a little hug,
Mhm,
just, compassion, right? Just be there, present for that person. And I think when you start giving to the world and spirit and humanity,
mhm,
the Creator starts abundantly giving back to you.
mm,
And I think there's a flow. And in Indigenous culture, we have what we call reciprocal
mhm,
energy, and it's something that we've always known about, because we as Indigenous people make offerings for our prayers. We gift tobacco.
mhm,
We hold it over our heart, we say our words, and we lay our tobacco down, usually in the eastern direction, because where the sun rises, right? As it's a ceremony when you do this. But we give that medicine, holding that intention, those prayers and the words, um, to be heard, to reciprocate what it is that we maybe need help, guidance, or direction with.
mhm,
And it doesn't have to be for just you. It could be, and right now I have an online course. It's called Spirit Talker Tribe. I have 750 students. I usually, in the last 3 years, I've had 750 students every year. And so that's amazing that new students are coming to me, and old students are sticking around too, because I even have a membership, etc.
mhm,
But every week, because of having 750 people in my course, there's stuff going wrong in people's lives all the time.
mhm,
One lady was in the hospital and was in an induced coma, and she's been with my course since day one. And other people were like, posting in the group, praying for her, and so I stopped and took a moment and just laid some tobacco and said a prayer for her. Creator, if she's meant to be here, help her be well so that she can continue this journey that she's on. Whatever she's meant to learn from this, help her learn it and help her be well. So I ask you this in great respect and in alignment with her life mission, of course, because whatever I say is not going to overrule what her purpose is. But maybe she's meant to heal from this, which I feel she is. It would empower the healing much greater, because when two or more people are gathered, even if you're at a distance, because we're all connected, we are absolutely all connected. It has this overarching power of all of us coming together to manifest something in a good way. And that's the power of your words, your ceremony, your prayers, etc.
It's very
And
powerful. Yes.
yeah, and Indigenous people, part of who we are is we don't have a religion. We have a way of life, but we have a spiritual practice. And our ceremonies is our spiritual practice. Is ours the only way? Do we think that ours is the only way that you could be? No, absolutely freaking not. There's so many people in the world. It's not just Indigenous people. I mean, there's Indigenous people from all over the world, everywhere, right? You're Indigenous from Poland, right? That's your roots, and maybe from other places too. But you still are Indigenous from somewhere. You have roots. I'm not 100% Indigenous from Canada. I got like 30% Irish in me somewhere. So I've got some Irish roots, and I love Celtic music, for God's sake. So, but whatever ceremonies that you do practice, they're yours. They're yours. And it doesn't have to be tobacco. It could be that, you go to a crystal store and you pick up a nice quartz crystal and you're going through something, right? And you just pick it up and you pray with it over your heart and you leave it somewhere in a sacred space. The reciprocation. I give you this to hear my words, to hear my thoughts, to hear my intention, to manifest into my life. And it's not something that I'm attached to. I'm not attached to the crystal like I can't get another crystal. Crystals abundantly flow in my life, whether people gift them to me or I have to go find another one some other way. But I will use it and I'll abundantly share it as that reciprocation of putting thoughts out there. And that's my ceremony. It could be yours too.
Yeah,
It's not,
I was very attracted to crystals when I was going through some hard time about 7, 8 years ago. And like you
yeah,
said, I did not have an attachment to it, but I saw something and I was like, oh, it speaks to me. I picked it up, I hold
right.
it. I actually right now, and I kid you not, I have a rock in my pocket. I can't remember what it is, but it's like whenever the thought comes in, I just go in. I have my altar in my bedroom, and I have a bunch of different kinds of rocks, and I have my sage. I have my, feathers that I find, or whatever I find up in the forest. I live in a country as well, so we go for walks, and whatever I find, I'll just bring it and I leave it there. And
Yeah.
just like 3 days ago, I don't know, my mind just kept on looking at that rock. And I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to put it in my pocket. So now for 3 days, I've been putting it in my pocket and keeping it in my pocket for whatever reason. And when I'm done, I'll just put it back.
Yeah,
So,
and I think ancient in peoples, that was a very common thing. Like, and I think it would be really important if all people, wherever you live, you had a little sacred space that you could go to and just, it could be your altar, right? Your spot to go and just kind of have words with the Creator that you could speak out loud. Nobody's hearing you but the Creator, and you could speak freely and openly, and you could leave offerings there. And whenever you needed to go back to the space, it could be the ocean, it could be a park, it could be the forest, it could be anywhere. Just what's sacred to you, right? Or it could be a special place in your house too. But I love outdoors. I love nature because I feel that's the real let's call it the real church of the Creator, is because that's where we've come from. We've come from that space. We've built houses, but the house of Mother Earth exists all around us, and I think we have to honor that connection to her as well.
yeah, I love what you just said, that you can create your church anywhere you go. And
Yeah.
those are the words of my mom. Like, we were brought up Catholic as well. but not very strong Catholics. Like when we immigrated, we lived in Greece for 2 years. So we were exposed to Orthodox religion. And then when we came to Canada in 1990, we were sponsored by 5 different churches. So I lived in PEI for about
Oh no.
4 years in Alberton. And then we moved to Charlottetown. So I lived in Charlottetown for about a year and a half or so before we moved to Ottawa. And those are my mom's words, exactly what you just said. The outside is my church. Because she, even though she is kind of like religious, but she's not. And then she's like, you know what? I just need to go outside and I need to connect with whatever she needs to connect with the highest self, with the spirit. I know she used to, when her mother passed away, she was really sad. So she would go for walks and she would connect with her mom that way. She would talk, she would cry. And that was her connection, which I was brought up that way because I remember this as a young teenager, hearing my mom saying that. And it stuck with me because now I'm passing this message to my children. And I said, you need to find your path. You need to find what is good for you at this particular moment. Don't shunt it. Just go with it and listen. Listen to the spirit. Listen to the voices. Listen to nature because nature speaks, right?
Yes, absolutely. Nature
So,
speaks. And everything has a consciousness, awareness, and everything has a spirit. The
mm-hmm,
trees have spirit. That's why when, as Indigenous people, we when we take the tree to, for whatever reason, to cut down to make a canoe or etc., or take the bark, we make an offering
mm-hmm,
to thank the tree for the tree spirit for allowing us to take what it is that we need.
mm-hmm,
So we offer the medicine. I've gone moose hunting in the past, and it's I'd rather go out and hunt an animal and take that life of that animal myself and honor the animal's life
mm-hmm,
than going to the store and buying
mm-hmm,
a pack of hamburger at Costco.
mm-hmm,
Personally, I see that animal. I know the animal's lived a good life. I can go lay tobacco for that animal. I can pray for that animal's spirit, thank the animal, and and harvest that animal. And then I would use all of the meat as much as I possibly can, fill my freezer, and it'll feed me and my family for like a year.
mm-hmm,
And every time I eat it, and I do, I have a freezer full of moose meat. When I eat the meat, and we don't eat it every day, but when we do, I'm so grateful
mm-hmm.
for the food that it's given me.
You being connected.
I-
Mm-hmm,
right. I think of that moose every time, and I thank the moose for the meal that it's provided me, because everything has a spirit. And I think a lot of people have forgotten the connection to the forest, the trees, the plants, and even with the plants, plants have spirits too. And I know many medicine people, and there's one in Ontario called Patricia Toulouse, and she's a traditional medicine woman, an Anishinaabe lady, and she picks herbal medicines, right?
mm-hmm,
So, and we're friends, and I've gone out and spent time with her and learned things from her. She's come to my home and taught me about different herbal medicines and such, but she's the expert, I'm not. But she taught me about even having how the different medicines will talk to you and tell you how they can help you. And the medicines that that could help with this ailment or that ailment, and to honor the plant when picking the medicine, making their offering, because you have to thank. And then when you drink the tea that the medicine has given you, you can have this kind of warm feeling in your heart that you harvested that dandelion root
mm-hmm,
for your tea, etc., or your cedar for your tea and such. But there's different things you can get that will help with different ailments, and the creators put that there for us to nourish us from unwellness to wellness,
mm-hmm,
to give us nutrients, because we require nutrients. And so there's a reciprocal energy that Indigenous people understand. And I think that's been lost a little bit in modern times,
mm-hmm.
and maybe it'll come back down the road. Who knows?
I think it's
I
coming
don't
back.
like
Mm-hmm,
I don't like, in the sense where humanity's gone in the way of like, bioengineered food,
yes.
and you have, and I think a lot more people are becoming more conscious to this. My wife, Michelle, is like looking at the ingredients of freaking everything now. She's like, yeah,
That would be me.
she's like, Exactly. Like she's looking at the guys. We can't eat this. Like this is what the hell is this? It's like I don't know.
Yeah,
It definitely didn't grow down in the forest.
yeah.
It's
Listen,
something.
I'm a holistic nutritionist. I totally understand where she's coming from. I keep telling
Yeah,
my children, I'm like, if you do not know how to read it, don't buy it. Put it back on the
yeah,
shelf.
yeah.
So I can
And
relate.
so
Yeah.
we try to eat more natural. We're trying to grow a bigger garden in the summer,
Mhm.
and expand our garden every year. And she just got some like Okanagan sweet potatoes yesterday that she's
Oh,
got
nice.
that she's going to try and get to root
Okay.
because they're organic, and she got them at Walmart of all places. She's
Okay.
cleaned them and she's put them in soil, and she's now going to try to see if she can root them because you can't buy them here anywhere.
Interesting.
And but they're like amazing, really good potatoes. So it's something we could like harvest in our garden, and then we'll like maybe it's something we keep doing every year, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We could keep the seeds, we could keep the buds, or what she's going to use from it to kind of like keep that going, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
love,
that's
yeah.
where
Gardening is great. I think more people should be involved in getting
yeah.
their hands dirty. And like you said earlier, connecting with the energy of the Mother Gaia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's spiritual too. When you're out,
Mhm.
when you're doing things like that, there's this kind of mindfulness that comes from being in spaces and places like doing gardening or harvesting, different medicines out in
It
the forest.
releases the endorphin and it makes you feel good.
Yeah, but also what I find when I'm looking for answers, if I go for a walk in the woods or nice long walk, and I just kind of just be present and mindful, the answers come to me.
Hmm.
I receive the guidance because most of us are so busy with the chaos of the world that is going on. You got the news on, or you got Google Home on, or Alexa running music all the time, but we forgot to take some time just to be silent.
To disconnect.
You know,
Hmm.
and it doesn't mean you have to meditate on a rock for 30 minutes.
Hmm.
It just means maybe you need to be mindful as you go for a walk in the forest, contemplating, not thinking, but contemplating, mindful contemplation of what's the answer for this problem that I'm going through right now.
Hmm.
And then maybe after the walk, you come back with a solution, right?
Hmm.
And it's because your mind was too busy not to think it up, but to allow the inspiration, the intuition, the clairvoyance, the clairsense, the claircognizance, the psychic aspect of our connection to spirit that I also feel, I hope, is coming back more and more full, is that we're starting to become more reconnected through our spirit, that language that of the universe,
Hmm.
that clairvoyance, clairsense, clairaudience, those words were, that describe psychic abilities. We become more aware of them, and we become more connected, more guided, have more answers for life when we're, facing different problems. And I know, and I'll tell one story because I like to teach in stories. And I talked about it in Spirit Talker. And in our culture, back in the day, before contact, because we were fairly psychic pre-contact.
Hmm.
It's when the simulation, and no offense to people who are Catholic or Christian, etc., but the colonization and saying, okay, well, this is the only way, and it's wrong to speak to the spirit. You have to go to the priest to talk to the creator, or you can't have divine inspiration. That's evil, right? So that kind of like was kind of kiboshing not just my or indigenous people's abilities and connections, but everybody in the whole world
Hmm.
that has been conforming to kind of like a mental mind virus of religion, let's
Hmm.
say. And I don't think that's what Jesus was teaching back in the day either. I think he was teaching his disciples to pray, go out into the wilderness, receive answers from the Creator, walk around, be in service of people, and, abundance would flow in their life when they needed it
Yeah.
for whatever reason. But in indigenous culture, pre contact, we, in order to receive insight, we sometimes we have medicine people. And some of our medicine people would use a bowl called a Waltus bowl, and the Waltus Bowl is a game. It's made of a maple. It's carved out of a solid piece, and it's a fun game. And there's like 7 pieces of bones or antlers that are in it. We bounce it, and all the pieces fly through the air, and it's kind of a fun game. And so anyway, the medicine person whether it was a medicine woman or medicine man or a two-spirited person, would take that bowl, fill it with water, and have a ceremony. They would leave it out in the moonlight for 4 nights. And then after the 4 nights, I'm sure there might have been a smudge, maybe a sweat ceremony. And then the person who could see very well would sit with the bowl and stare in and gaze into the water, not looking into the water, but just gaze blankly at it, very much like that walk in the forest. You're mindful. You're just open. And as you sit there and gaze into the bowl of water, the medicine that you're doing the ceremony for would that the wisdom would come to you for what medicine you needed to give that person, because you weren't sure, so you had to kind of go in this spirit to find, okay, what do I need to give this person to help them be well? And then spirit would answer, and then you'd be guided to go get some fir buds and some blueberry leaves and different things, and you'd make a tea for that person. Or if somebody was struggling in some psychological way within the community, that insight of guidance would come to the medicine person based on just gazing into the water. They would have this kind of insight, visual, mental, or just a knowing of what to how to guide that person. And so as colonization happened, we were obviously using our psychic abilities quite strongly, and we had medicine people that could do that were more adept in that than others. That wasn't the calling. And I'm not saying everybody has to be running around being psychic for everybody, because maybe being a nurse is what empowers you. It's what gives you, it's the juice of life. You're like, oh my God, I'm so excited to go to work and do what I do. It's like, where I'm serving people, helping them be well in like an ER or something like that. Or you're a psychologist and you just sit there and listen to people and give people some guidance. I think there's maybe some intuition involved in that, because my daughter, Mackenzie, who lives in Calgary, Alberta, is a two-spirited, because she's two-spirited herself, but she's also a two-spirit psychologist and counselor. And that's what she does for a living. And, I know that she has a clinical way that she's supposed to approach things, but do you think that maybe her intuition maybe is guiding her sometimes? Yeah, absolutely it is. But when colonization happened, when the Jesuit priests and stuff came over and saw our ceremonies, they said, these are evil. These are bad. You have to stop these. So they start drilling holes in our bowls, because they thought if we couldn't fill them with water, it was okay to play a game. But if you're going to fill it with water and stare into it and receive insight, that was bad. So so our elders, many of our ceremonies were lost. And some of the ceremonies people would have to go and practice in the backwoods somewhere, because in order to remember and pass down to the tradition and knowledge, they'd have to do it in a hidden space, because they didn't want to be condemned by the community or have their children taken away from them. And that stuff was happening, which is so unfortunate, right? But we're at a time today that can't happen anymore, and it's time to remember who we are is Indigenous people of the world. Not and again, I'm not negating anyone's religion. If you're religious, that if that works for you, so be it. But I'm challenge you to expand your spirit beyond it, and to have your own personal ceremonies, your own personal connection. Don't feel like you need to come to me, for God's sakes. Have your connection with the Creator. Talk to your ancestors. Talk to your loved ones, like what your mom did. Even though she was Catholic, right? She still had a practice, right? And
Be
I
open.
think, yeah,
Be
be open. I
open.
think that needs to be more people needs to be doing that at this point of life. And I think because as human evolution takes place, because of there's a lot of technology in the world, but look, we're video streaming from Ottawa to Nova Scotia, and think about that 50 years ago, that wasn't even possible. We have a lot of technology that has happened. We have AI that is coming out, replicating people and pretending they're people, and even fooling people out of money sometimes, which is like insane. But we have to become more grounded as well, not just caught up in our technology and science, but also within our spirit, because that's truly who we are first. The technology can help us, like what we're doing, because we couldn't share our message the way we are if it wasn't the technology wasn't here.
We just have to
We
use
might
it
be go,
smartly. Like we have to be
yeah.
smart about it.
If you can work, make it work for you, but it still remain grounded in your spirit
Yeah.
first and your spirituality, and then allow that to kind of flourish into the work and service that you provide for people within the world.
Yeah. Don't get sucked in. I always say to my children, I have 3 children, and I always say to them too, my 12-year-old doesn't have a phone yet, which I'm super happy. But I always
Yeah.
say, don't get stuck to it. Just kind of going and flipping with their fingers through TikTok or things like they don't have Instagram and Facebook, but TikTok, it's a huge thing. But
Yes.
I've said that many times to different kinds of people. And I said, we have, I mean, they probably hate us in a way right now because they're teenagers, but
Yes.
we take their phones away. Oh, we don't take them away. We have a basket, and those phones have to go in that basket from certain time when they come from school all the way after supper. So we as family can reconnect. So that way you come
Yeah.
in, in the kitchen, or we sit down and we actually have these conversations. We can play a game. We can ask how they're doing and ask about the progress of school and things like that. So I think it's so important to do that uh, with kids, because if not, they need guidance, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and they need to have
So,
that family connection too. And I think,
yeah,
some of that we might be inadvertently as people, human nation, with all these technologies, disconnecting ourselves from the people we love in so many ways. We may feel connected in some way, like to all the people on TikTok, but we're not connected to our mom or dad or brother or sister,
right,
maybe even your dog or cat,
right.
because you're spending so much time looking at videos instead of like spending time with the people, like quality time.
Mm,
And I like that's a great idea though, like having a time where you take your phone and put it away to a certain time, and then after that, do what you need to do. But
yeah,
for some time, make your family time a priority, and I think
right.
that's an amazing idea.
Yeah. Like this morning or last night after supper, our daughter, who is going to be 18 the end of March, and she says, Mom, Dad, I think we need to go outside tomorrow morning for a snowshoe. And we're like looking at each other. We're like, okay, no problem. We're going to do
Yeah.
it. So this morning, my husband, 6 o'clock, he's like, everybody up, let's go. And then it's like, oh, do we have to? Yes, because Isabella said we have to. So we all got
Right.
up, and again, like we live in the country, we just drove across the highway, parked our car, took our 3 dogs, and we went for about 2 hours,
Wow.
snowshoeing up in the Gatineau Park, which was
Right.
beautiful.
Oh, that
And
would be
came
beautiful.
home, and everybody was just like, that was awesome. So the
Yeah.
dog had blast, we had blast, we connected, we laughed, we made snow angels. So it was really cool. Yeah, I love those
Yeah.
moments.
That is good. I mean, and yeah, I mean, you're outside, you're connected to Mother
Yeah,
Earth, you're together. There's this synergy, and it's very grounding. And I'm sure after something like that, you'll be exhausted too. It'd be just like, okay, wow, that's like that takes a lot of energy to do all that. But it's a good energy because you need to be engaged in life,
yes,
right? We need to be engaged in life, and I think that's not engaged in life on your phone or your computer or watching Netflix. It's engaged in life out in the world, doing whatever, and just seeing the world. I mean, we have
mm,
an opportunity to even travel the world and just go different places and just see different cultures and meet different people.
that's it.
It's so amazing that we can do that, and what better that's better than Netflix is getting out, go to Aruba for a week and connect to the Caribbean people and watch a parade or something, just do
You'll have
something
a
different.
different perspective on life. You have a more of a understanding of what's going around you instead of being narrow-minded in a way,
Yeah,
right? So like experiencing.
absolutely. Experience life,
Yeah,
live life.
yeah,
That's what we're here to do, is live it as joyously as we can. And we still need to pay our bills and all
of
that, but
course.
do it, pay your bills in a way that you feel drawn to do it, like that
Hmm.
you feel this isn't work, right?
Mm.
I could literally probably retire my life right now if I wanted to. I probably would be like very
Mm.
I would have to live very frugally, but I mean, I could do it if I really wanted to,
But
but
Sean,
I
you're
don't
on a
want to.
mission.
I know. I want to keep going. I want to keep getting out there and doing what I want to do, and sharing what I have so much more I still want to give.
Hmm.
I still have so much more inside me that I need to put out into the world.
Right.
I have only given a little bit, and I want to give more,
Hmm.
because when at the end of the world, when I leave, I want to leave the world better than I showed up,
Hmm.
And anything of wisdom or knowledge that I've gained on this journey, I want to leave it within the world too, so that other people may be able to read it, learn from it, understand something from it, because that effectively will change the future generations.
Mm.
You know, in Indigenous culture, we always had this where we sat with elders, right? And they would share those stories with you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's lost because of like disconnection of technology and cell phones and Netflix and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't mean that people aren't getting some wisdom from Netflix too. I mean, there could be an amazing show on Netflix you can watch it that would help you understand something.
Mm-hmm.
I even learn about other cultures through Netflix sometimes, which is good. But we still need to have that firsthand knowledge from people where they're telling you a story, not just in video format on Netflix, but maybe in a book, or sitting down and having a conversation with an elder that has lived such a unique life, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and just understand what their journey was, because that's those are gifts, and they can't take it with them to the spirit world. They can take that all of that wisdom with them, but they're going to take that with them, and then that needs to be left here in some way.
Yeah.
So everybody that has an amazing story, everybody that has something to share should be sharing it, looking for a way to share it. Before this book came out, Spirit Talker, I actually self-published a book. It was called The Language of Spirit. And I self-published through Balboa Press. And I think I spent like $18,000 between writing, publishing, a ghost author, and all this. It was like quite costly. And I think when I finally got published through Hay House, it's there's some of the same stories are in this book too,
Mm-hmm.
except I think there's like a much more expanded version and edited version than what my first self-published book was. But when I self-published, I didn't care. I just wanted to get it out there. And so if you have something inside you that needs to come out, share it.
Mm-hmm.
And as Dr. Wayne Dyer, another like amazing Helios author that's in the spirit world, I know many people must know about him. If you don't, you should look up his books. Amazing, great books that he's left out in the world that you can still learn from. And there's even videos and stuff out there that he teaches on that you can learn from his talks, etc. But what he says one thing that really has resonated with me, and it is, don't die with your music still inside you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So my music is my wisdom. My music is what I've learned. My music is my spiritual connection and my understanding to that. And I don't want to leave this world without sharing it with the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I ask you to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
I ask you to do the same. If there's something inside you that you need to share with the world, and whatever it is, keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a TV show. I've done 5 years of Spirit Talker and APTN here in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got my first self-published, or my book through Hayos. I got 2 more books. I've signed another 2-book deal through Hayos that are coming out. One might be coming in the fall, I believe, on spirit totem animals. And I'm sure I want to write more. Even if Hayos doesn't want me to write for them, I'm going to write anyway. Because it's not about being under the Hayos brand and saying, okay, well,
It's
I
your
have a Hayos
message.
book. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just putting what you have inside there out there and sharing with the world the greatest way that you can.
Mm-hmm. Sean, can you tell me why some spirits don't leave and they stick around?
Oh, you mean earthbound spirits? I
Yes.
mean, that's the human ego, right? I mean, we all cling to things.
Okay.
Some people cling to their phone,
So even
right? They
when they're passed on, they can still hold on.
Some, very few,
Okay.
very very few. It's very rare, actually. I think
Mm-hmm.
that like I've come across some spirits that are still staying in a home somewhere, and they still very much entrenched in that human ego that they have,
Mm-hmm.
or they once were. They've not surrendered it. And I think maybe there might be fear, right? Fear from them thinking that, well, if I move into this enormously beautiful white light, or this tunnel, or that I follow this beautiful lady into the light, that somehow I'm going to lose that part of myself.
Do you think
And it
they
could be fear.
know that they're past, or
I believe that they know their past.
okay?
Yes. I think they know they're no longer in their body.
Mm,
And because they start walking through walls and doors and things like that. So
right.
they're like, well, that's kind of weird. They might not know immediately, because I feel like there's this like, well, who's that person? Because you hear a lot of people who have had near-death experiences,
Mm-hmm.
right, where they're hovering above their body, looking at that person. They're like, wow, that guy looked like he's been through hell.
Yeah.
And then they realize it's them. They're like, what the hell? That's me.
Yeah.
But I'm right here. I'm okay. But that's my body. It looked like he was in some terrible accident, right?
Mm.
So they want that, sooner or later they will identify that they're no longer in that form. And sometimes it's the shock because they've seen themselves after the fact, but because they can't identify with themselves, because I mean, everybody looks a little different after you left your body too. And the spirit that emanates through this form, and I've seen so many people deceased too now that, and people will say, well, don't they just look like they did alive? I'm like, no, they don't. They don't. That spirit is no longer in there. There's a shell of a person there. That person that was in there is no longer in there anymore. It's just a shell of that 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 that
It's
the
energy.
formless, the ageless part of you is always existing. That's what still exists in this form, even though I've gone from this big to this big and gray hair now, and I'm growing hairs by the second probably in my ears and my nose and wherever, because I'm getting old. But there's a formless part of me that is always going to exist. And I think when people leave their physical form and see their body, they'll identify that they're no longer in it. And they may still have fear, though. They may still have fear because many people have fear for different reasons. And I think, let's say 99.9999% of the people see that light and they go, oh my God, that's home. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I'm supposed to go. This is all fake. This has been some type of like strange reality that I've been living temporarily. But that's where I really come from. That's who I really am. And they move into it with open arms and an open heart and just unconditional love, and they just feel so much peace, and then they go on this experience. And some people come back and tell us about it because they've had what you call near-death experiences where they've gone the other side, met their guides or angels or ancestors, sometimes met Jesus, or had an encounter with what they would say is the creator, or the creator's energy that exists wherever. And they come back to tell us these stories, and I think they're amazing, these stories that people share.
I asked you
But
this because
they still
my
move on.
best friend's my best friend's daughter is very spiritually connected since she was a baby,
Right.
and they lived in like semi-detached home. And what
Yeah.
happened one day, they found the news that their neighbor's son, who was just about to turn 18, committed suicide.
Right.
And it was very sad. But then the daughter kept on seeing him.
Hmm.
So her mom doesn't shun her or anything like that. She's like, just talk to him, just say, it's okay, you can leave and things like that. But he wouldn't. And it seems like Danica was saying that he's lost and he's just
Yeah.
coming back and he's asking her, because she can hear him, what's happening, what happened. And then it was to a point where he would not want to leave at all. Like he was there all the time. So
Okay.
then Karen, she messaged someone who is like a shaman person or a psychic medium, and she came to the house and they did some sort of spiritual cleansing or not. And
Yeah.
I think two more times or three more times that boy came and then he left.
Yeah.
So he never came back. But it was
Yes.
quite interesting. That's why I was asking you, because I was like, how do they know, or they can they can move
Well,
on to the
sometimes they're
next.
drawn to certain people because they know that they maybe feel like they can help them.
Mm,
And so I feel like with the young girl that was next door, Danica, you said her name was,
mhm,
that she was receptive. She was intuitive
mhm,
and open enough that he knew that he could come through and communicate to her.
mhm.
And he was looking for help. He wasn't, because he's confused, right?
Right.
I think he's not sure really what happened. Maybe he didn't see his body or see how it all went down at the end, and somehow he's at home and can identify with like where what happened, where he went from this player to the other. Because maybe, like, as far as he remembers, he was thinking about taking his life, and then somehow, because you can't take your life,
Yeah.
there's no, you can't do that, because you can leave the form, but your life still exists. You can leave the body. You're just taking the life out of the body. And so he is still existing on an astral realm of energy, and it's still in the space. And I think he was coming to her because he realized that he still existed. And I
Mm,
think maybe because a lot of people that think about suicide or death by suicide, that think that this is going to end all of their suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And that won't. It won't end their suffering. Because if you suffered and you have a mentality, a mental mind virus, and you leave this world and you move into the astral world and then you don't embrace the light,
Mm-hmm.
let's say you don't see the light, you don't embrace it, or you're scared of it, you're still going to have that same mindset. You're not going to escape the mindset.
Right.
If you choose to move into the other side, then yes, you'll surrender the ego. You surrender your belief system. You surrender the heaviness, the thoughts of heaviness that have been bogging you down, right? So you have to surrender to move into the other world. And then when you get there, you're surrounded by this unconditional loving light. There's angels, there's ancestors, there's guides, there's healing places. There's even a lot of places in nature where you become well again.
Mm.
So you don't just jump into the other side and go, I'm here and I'm 100% and I'm ready to go. No, well, let's go through your life for a little bit and just see where you struggle, and let's see what happened at the end. So there's a life review. A lot of people talk about a life review, and why would you have a life review if it wasn't important?
Right.
So there's an importance to having it, reviewing your life and your choices and what you've done and what your plan was, what you intended to come here and do and where you were off track, etc. And that's why we have many lifetimes, because you're not going to like evade your karma by leaving this world through suicide. You're just not going to be able to finish it right now. But there's times you're coming back.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you're going to go to the other side and, well, wow, I really failed myself here. I'm going to have to come back and reface a lot of these things. And this time, maybe through a few other synchronicities, maybe transcend it or overcome it in a good way. And this time I will make it through.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we have other lifetimes to kind of continue that experience and within this world and other worlds as well. But I think to learn from the human condition, it'd probably be if you've not overcome the mental mind viruses that you were carrying in life, that you'll have to come and face situations that kind of re-trigger those cell memories that you have within your spirit, and then still find a way to overcome it in another lifetime. Maybe through the same family, maybe through a family that is a few generations away. But you'll set it up that you come back and do it. So there is no I get out of jail free pass.
Right.
This is jail in a sense. We're here, but you can grow flowers in your jail, or and go out and pick your own medicine. I mean, it's a pretty big jail. It's the earth.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on your perception of what Mother Earth is, right?
Yeah.
You can be your prison, or it can be the greatest place to explore that you could ever imagine if you only allowed yourself. But that's how you see things. And if you can choose the way you look at things, the things that you look at in life will change. But it starts with you and what's inside you and how you shift your perceptions. And that's what wellness is like choosing to see things a little bit differently, choosing to accept that you've been through the trauma and healing from it, forgiving people that have maybe hurt you because of the trauma, etc.
But you also
And
have
then
to forgive
despite
yourself. Learn how to forgive
forgive
yourself.
yourself. Well,
Mm-hmm.
and I even say with forgiveness, forgiveness is like, if you break the word down, it's forgiving, right? Forgive.
Mm-hmm.
So what is forgive? Well, it's energy that you have that you kept inside that is not working for you there.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to let it outside of you. You have to give it away. Give it to the source, give it to Creator, give it to your angels, give it to God, give it to the person that has harmed you. Not in a negative way. I'm not saying, well, you've given me this shitty feeling, I'm going to give you this shitty feeling back. Well, no, because if you're giving a shitty feeling, that means that's what you still have inside you. Forgiveness is shifting what you have inside you and giving that instead. So if you are angry with somebody and you want to shift it, change it to kindness, compassion, love, within you, and then give that to the person you don't like. Because what you have inside you is something that you can give another person. It's forgiving.
Yeah, you're shifting things for yourself, but you're also shifting things for the other person as well.
You're changing the karmic connection.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're all connected, and there's science that even says that we're all connected, right? So through our thoughts, I mean, that's why people can like, that's why they call psychic attacks, right? Because there's somebody like thinking really bad things about you all the time.
Yeah.
And then you somehow feel a little bit down or a little bit
Yeah.
depressed and you don't know why, a little bit confused
Where's
because
that
that
voodoo
energy,
doll?
right? And I'm sure there's an ex out there of mine that has a voodoo doll of me. I'm sure, but that only has power because, that's what the medicine she has inside her,
Mhm.
right? It's not the medicine I have inside me for towards her, right? It's not because if I was to have anything other than love and compassion and forgiveness for her, then that would mean that I'm holding on to anger, resentment, fear. There's things inside me that I'm carrying it.
Mhm.
And then I'm letting her medicine affect me.
Yeah.
But I choose not to let other people, anybody can think whatever they want about me. I'm hoping it's all good things.
Mm.
And I'll tell you, there's probably more good things being thought about me than all the bad things that people are thinking about me in the world. And that doesn't mean that on Facebook you're not going to have some guy that is not in the same belief system come up and say you're a fraud,
Yeah.
and,
He's
and
just
say
out of
bad
line,
things.
and he just needs to go
That's
through his
okay.
own process.
I
So
accept him
yeah.
for where he is. I send a prayer to him.
Yeah.
Pray, Creator. Help that man's wisdom just to be a little bit greater, so they can see things in a different way. Help him see life in a good way, so that he can accept all people for where they are, and surround him with like unconditional love and light, because that's what that man needs in his heart. And
Mm.
then I delete, ban, and block.
So maybe you can learn a thing or two.
Boundaries, boundaries. But that's what I have.
Yeah.
It's what I have to give. And I have a lot of people talk to me about medicine and bad medicine people and all that, but it
Mm.
has no effect if you are a good medicine person,
Mm.
because nothing can, if all you have inside you is good love, kindness, then that's all that's going to come out of you.
Just one negative thought is not going to affect you in a
No,
negative way, right? Yeah.
no, not at all.
So,
No.
how do you respond to people who are, for example, skeptical about mediumship? And they're very
Well,
kind
I
of
say
like,
come see me.
I'm not sure
I,
if I
I
want
would
to
say
go
come
that way.
come see me and see what I do. There's no like, there's nothing to hide when I'm
Mhm.
standing in front of like 600 people and I'm just standing there spouting out stuff that no one could possibly know. I mean, you could see that.
Mhm.
But what I usually tell people is, even if you don't want to do that, explore psychic abilities yourself. What if they're real, they exist, and not just in me? And maybe if you come see me and I show you that it's possible, but really, why am I showing you it's possible? Is that so that I can be right all the time? No,
Mhm.
I'm not. I'm not right all the time. I might be right more than a lot of people, but I'm not right all the time. I'm still human. I have that human condition. I still, even if you were to tell me something right in life, I might go and tell someone else and alter it some way because I don't remember it the way you told me.
Mhm.
Right. So it's my perception of what you told me that I would tell someone else. That's the same thing with spirit communication. And how they communicate is a little bit different than just using words. It's like clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance. It's a combination of everything put together. But if it's possible for me and you can see me doing it, I don't want people following me around thinking that they have to have this experience through me. Find the experience within you.
Mhm.
Find it within you and explore your own spirit.
Mhm.
Start talking to spirit, like make an offering and say, Spirit, I'm really skeptical, but I need to know that you're with me in some way. If you're really there, really get my attention. I challenge you to do something in a good way, from a good space, not because I'm challenge you out of like, you know, anger or
Mhm.
whatever, or resentment. Do it from a good space. Just say,
Mhm.
speak from your heart to spirit and say, do something so unique that I'll know that it was you, and it's no way possible unless you've done it.
And then listen.
Not even just listen, just go about your life.
Mhm.
Go about your life and just see what happens. Something will happen. Spirit hears us. When you realize that you're being heard by your people, it'll change your life. It'll shift your life.
Mhm.
And and I'll tell you this one last story
Mhm.
that's in alignment with this. Way back in the day, I was in Calgary. And this is when I first started doing like readings, like way back, like a long time ago. And I was working at the office furniture company. It was called SMED, and then Hayworth, and I was doing bills of material and AutoCAD, etc. But I used to work with a guy named Conrad Kardashian. And this is when internet first came out. He gave me a program called Microsoft Front Page 2003. And I was already working as a medium, but this is when I made my first web page, was in 2003. And he had the program. He bought it. And so I used it. And I mean, because back in the day, you actually had to download a program to check your email. You had to have, you couldn't go online and build a website. You had to have a web builder to build your website. And so I used this program, Microsoft Front Page 2003, that he lent me to build my webpage. And then my computer crashed. And I had to go buy a new computer. I get home, I turn it on. I'm like, okay. And then I realize that all of my software that was on my computer came from Conrad. And Conrad didn't work where I worked anymore. He went on to start a business and do house construction and all this. And he lived in a little tiny place called Black Diamond or Turner Valley or something like this. So anyway, I'm looking through the yellow pages and the white pages, trying to find
The
Conrad.
yellow pages.
I know. That's what I mean. There was in the internet, that stuff didn't exist in the internet back in the day. And I couldn't find him.
Sorry,
And
I'm
so
gonna
I
quickly interrupt. It's funny because last week we were telling the kids, we're like, oh, the yellow pages. And our kids are like, yellow pages, what's that? It's like, well, this is where you actually were finding people, with all the information. If you ever wanted, a plumber come over, or someone who plow your driveway, or someone,
you couldn't just Google plumber near me. So here I'm looking for Conrad and I couldn't find him. And, Calgary's like in the surrounding areas, there's 1 million plus people. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to find this guy. But it was Saturday. And so I had to give up. I did get the computer. It's blank. There's nothing on it. I can't check an email. I can't go to my website. I don't have the program. I asked my wife, can I go buy the program? She goes, you just spent like, $800 on a computer. We can't afford another $600 or $700 program for your computer. Because back in the day, money was tight with the family and such. And so I just spoke out loud. I said, Creator, I really need to get a hold of Conrad. I don't know how you're going to make me find him or connect to him, but I really need him. I need him for this program because I was very clear what I needed. And so I decided to give up because I went outside and I was working on a fence. And I worked on the fence all day. And I called my brother after I was done for the day. And I said, Jamie, my brother who lives in Calgary, I said, I got to hang the front gates on my house on the gate tomorrow. Can you come out and help hold them while I mark the hinges and hang the gate with the latch and all this so that it's all level and all that? Because I'm having a hard time doing it myself. I built the gate, 2 of them for the front. Mm-hmm. So I called my brother and he said, well, I'm going out drinking tonight, but I should be able to make it there by 10. And so anyway, 10 o'clock rolls around. I'm out there getting my gate ready to hang. My brother does not show up. Apparently he must have been out drinking a little bit longer than he thought he would be. He was young, right? He was in his early 20s at that time. And probably met up with some girls or something like this. Who knows? But so anyway, I got to figure this out myself now. I'm home alone. My wife and kids are gone somewhere. I'm going to hang my gate. So I'm getting 2x4s. I'm leveling them all out on the bottom. I'm putting the gate on and opening it up, putting more 2x4s. So it's all level. I put the hinges. I'm marking the hinges. I'm drilling holes. I take the lag bolts, put in the hinges, and swing it, put the latch on. It's all good, right? Mm-hmm. And after I just finished hanging the gate, and it looked pretty good, I hear somebody beeping their horn on the road. And I turn around, and there's a guy who says, excuse me, sir, could you help me? I'm looking for this address. And I turn it around, and it was Conrad. And I said, Conrad, what the hell are you doing here, man? And he goes, I was just asking to find you yesterday. And he goes, yeah, I just got a call this morning for puppies at this address. And it's literally around the corner from where I live. He says, but I can't seem to find the number. He says, hey, Sean, how you doing? I'm like, yeah, that's great and all. I said, do you still got that program? He goes, I got it. The program. I'm coming in town tomorrow for a work site. I'll bring it to you. And I'm like, that's so amazing. I'm like, oh my God. It was like, what all the things that had to happen, I asked for help. And even when things were going wrong, they were what I thought were going wrong, they were going right. My brother didn't show up. If he had showed up, it would have been done probably in 15 minutes and been inside and not even on the
And
road.
that wouldn't probably even happen. You probably wouldn't even
No,
know.
it wouldn't have happened.
Hmm.
Yeah, he would have like passed my house, not seen me
Yeah.
outside. All the little things that had to kind of like this synchronicity that had to take place to make that happen was just amazing. And just like, oh my God, like how is the universe conspiring to help us
Yeah.
if we only knew how connected we were? And even when things think where they're not going right, they might be going right. You just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
And so that's where I really like grasp a hold of knowing how important your words are and how important it is to speak with your guides, your ancestors, your people, and just asking for help if you need it. And and I didn't put a time frame. I said, okay, can you do this tomorrow?
Hmm.
I was like hoping like a month down the road somehow I'd run into him, and it happened like the very next morning, less than 24 hours. And no, my whole life hasn't been like that, but there's been moments like that. And it only takes a few moments to realize that you're connected.
Mm.
I challenge a skeptic to expand the possibilities of what they believe. I challenge them to try to learn about psychic abilities. I challenge them to speak with the spirit world. I challenge them. They challenge me on my beliefs, but I'm challenging them on their beliefs.
Mm.
Just try and see what happens. You can disbelieve in me still if you choose to. I don't care, because it that's your ego, not mine. I don't need for you to believe that I'm real or not real. I don't care. I'm still going to do what I do anyway because it's something that brings me joy and I love it. And whatever brings you joy, that's amazing. If it's being skeptical, so is it. So be it. But I challenge you. If you're going to challenge me, I'm going to challenge you too, just to try to expand what you think, who you are, and how you fit within it all.
Yeah. I always
And
find that again, we are all on a different, timeline. And for me is like plant the seeds. And I think once you plant a seed, you can't push someone to something that they are either not willing to listen to or they're not open to the idea. You just start and then you walk away and let
yeah,
them
and
percolate and let them figure this out because
I
that's on
accept them
them.
where they're on their journey. That's
That's
their
it.
journey. It's not my journey. I can't make everybody's journey my journey.
That's it.
My journey is mine, and theirs is theirs, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We don't have to share the same journey.
Yeah. I love that.
But if you really want to know about something, go learn about it. Don't go thinking you have to find it in someone. Find it in yourself
Yeah.
because it is there. It is there. We're all connected. We're all psychic. We all have intuitions, not just special people or certain people or
We all
just
do.
indigenous people. We all
Yeah.
do.
Thank you, Sean. Would you like to share your final thought?
Well, I just want to say, well, thank you everybody for joining this conversation today. Thank you, Alexandra, for doing the work that you do and being of service in the way that you are, and just keep moving forward. And good people will come at the right time, and the right conversations will happen, and that's how we grow and expand. And sometimes it's like I've been doing it, like it literally, I like when I set out, 25 some years ago, I'm 52 now. I started off in my early 20s. That I even back then I wanted to be a Hales author. It didn't manifest right away. It took 20 years to manifest.
Yeah.
But it's not that I was like, oh, well, if I'm not a Hales author, I'm not going to feel like I made it. I'm going to get out there. I'll self-publish. I'll get out there and do what I'm doing. And if it's meant to be, it will be. If it's not, that's okay. I'm still going to be who I need to be right now. And I just been activating that in the greatest way that I can, through this work for a very long, long time. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning about things. I'm still learning about spirit. I'm still learning about, our connection at all. And that's the amazing part. I don't want people to believe that I think I know it all. I don't. I'm still learning. And we all will be, and not just this one lifetime, through our multitude of lifetimes beyond this time. We wouldn't come here if we weren't learning.
This is not the end.
No, absolutely is
Yeah.
not the end. Just embrace the knowledge and the learning now of where you are, accept where you are, and just if there's something that brings you joy, whether it's music, healing, speaking, teaching, it could be massage therapy, whatever it is, just do it and just keep plugging away at it in a very short time. You'll be like an expert in your field of sorts, and you'll be out there serving people in a way that you feel that you're giving to the world in a way that you feel compelled to.
Mm.
And that's the secret to life, is to do what brings you joy.
That's the secret sauce.
That is the secret sauce. Absolutely.
Well, Sean, I really appreciate this conversation and your insights. Again, thank you. And I'm looking forward to, actually, by the way, if I will put all the notes and all your books and all your links at the bottom of the show, so that way anybody would like to get in contact with you, it's going to be all there. So again, Sean,
Perfect.
thank you kindly.
Well, thank you so much, Aleksandra.
You're
And I hope
welcome.
to see everyone all again in the future somewhere.
Yes.
Okay.
Bye.
Namoltis, which means I'll see you again.